Hey Clashers, I see a lot of comments of people saying that this game right now is way too easy, Legend League feels kinda random, and the defenses are only luck based. I thought I would just run an experiment to see if those statements are correct. Over the last season I have built bases for 2 of my friends to see if they could beat their personal records and if I could boost them with my bases. On top of that, in this video I will share every single base with you, 16 bases in total, and I will share with you how I built them, what my thought process was, and how I changed things up quite a bit from base to base. But I think we should start things off with, did they actually beat their personal records? The first player was David, actually an ex-Worlds player, and had a rank finish of top 150 around. Well, did he beat it? Yes, rank 26 was his final score, which is super impressive. Rank 26, I think he was quite happy with that. He was close to the top 10, but last 2 days were not as good for him, so he did miss it unfortunately. On the other side, we had Chepper, a Clash of Clans live streamer, and he had a personal best of around 1,500. So did he beat it because he wanted to get a top 200 finish with those bases? Well, actually, he did beat it quite easily. He was even most of the season as well within the top 100. But as a live streamer, I think we all know that there are sometimes those off days where just nothing works. And really, unfortunately, he had that day on the last day and kind of threw away the top 100 season. Overall, I think he still was really happy, and I hope that those 2 examples are kind of like a showcase that with good bases, you will always finish high in Legends. Yes, you can still be lucky and maybe get only 7 defenses or something, but with good bases, you will always finish high. That is how it works. On top of that, let's now dive into those bases and see how the entire season started. Everything started with 2 invisibility towers. No big surprise. Rage towers and poison towers versus a royal champion charge doesn't really do that much. So instead I opted into like a double invis tower base to start things off, and big surprise, it wasn't as successful. The learning point for me for this base though was that it's really important to have those dead zones around those invis tower islands. The reason for this is that the troops have to leave the area. If they're sticking around on a storage or another defense, the root riders for example, the invis tower is getting triggered, they're switching to another defense and they're going back right as soon as the invis tower is running out. So that was the first positive thing about this base. Otherwise, the defense distribution wasn't as great, so I thought, okay, let's just mix it up. Let's just go with the core of 1 invis tower and maybe a rage tower, because this was super popular then in the beginning of the season as well, where people were able to combine a rage tower with the invis tower as well. The rage tower, as I said, was super strong. It was just that you had to protect it. And this base right here did that, or at least attempted it. It did work quite well for the beginning, but people were using the style of base just way too much, so it was overused and the style just did not work out that much anymore. But what did I learn as well? That you always have to keep the defensive ring closed. Especially on this bottom left side, you can see it. We have Expo, Scatter, and then a storage. This is leading the Royal Champion into the core a lot of times, and that can be problematic. So those things should not happen if possible. And that then created the next base, which has worked really well, which we were able to use to like half a week for a week around, because that was the moment then where things were getting copied way too much. But this is how it looked like. I tried to stick to the mechanics which I knew would work, which means this specific invisibility and rage tower core with using the ring of defenses around it. On the other side though, I added a new mechanic on top, because this is kind of how you improve. You're trying new things. And for this one, I'm trying to lead the Royal Champion away from the key defenses. I'm doing that with adding a street of defenses. That's pretty much how it works. So instead going for a key defense, the Royal Champion has to go through wizard towers, cannons and such defenses before she can actually claim the big prize. And that's exactly what I did on the top left, because people wanted to get the monolith out of the game, so I had non-defenses in front of it, and then I had a defensive street, that's kind of how I call it, in front of it to lead the Royal Champion away. And if you did not bring enough invisibility spells, you would not get the funnel, and the ring of the entire defenses would be not interrupted, and the troops would go anywhere. And that was actually a big problem for a lot of players and something which they have not seen really before. So a lot of people were falling for this trap. And trap is a really good keyword because so far I was not showcasing any traps for you because I know traps can be another topic because I wanted to start to concentrate on the layout of the base first. And then we're diving more into the traps. Something else as well is that at this point, people were slowly overusing this style of base way too much with this core. So I thought, okay, let's try to be ahead of the curve, and I built a lot of bases without Invis towers. I should have never done this. Bases without the Invis tower with the current broken Royal Champion charge in the game is nearly impossible to defend. The attacker has to mess up big times, and those were my attempts right here. While some of them did quite okay, it did not even come close to the success of those Invis Tower bases, especially because with those ring style bases, you always had the risk of a 1-star for the attacker, while for you as a defender, that was always a huge boost in trophies. So I went back to my Invis style, and with that, I've created one of the more copied bases in High Legends, and pretty much a really solid base for everyone who ran my bases, and it was this base right here. And with this base, I have tried to combine everything from what I have learned so far from my bases into one specific base. First off, we had the core again, which felt super successful with the Rage and Invis Tower. We had again the ring of the defenses and as well again the special protection of the Eel Artillery. On top of that, though, something new which I have done is to prevent the king of breaking easily into one of those corners, because I have added on the top and on the right side 2 extra compartments in front to make sure that people who are bringing only 1 or 2 war breaks are having a rough time of actually getting into the compartment where their king could then get out of the funnel done with the earthquake boots and the spiky ball. This was not an easy thing anymore, and this new addition really made it hard for some people to create the pathing. And this is now leading us as well to the next step, which is a lot of people were trying to avoid the monolith side with the Royal Champion charge. And this is why we are placing now the traps, because in Legend League you're not trying to defend everything. We're not having Town of 15 anymore, where probably a monkey could build a base and would defend. No, that's not the case anymore. You really need to now know where people are entering and trap accordingly, and don't try to have like an all-rounder trap set. Instead, a lot of people were using the Royal Champion charge on the far right side because a lot of people are right-handed. And this is why they're starting on the right side. Yes, might sound like a little weird, but that's how it works, right? And you're trying to defend the masses. You're trying to defend the average attack. This is why most of the traps are then at the top side, because this is where the Root Riders have followed up. As well, mostly Root Rider were trapped, or more like most Root Rider attacks had to be trapped, because over the season people have slowly figured out in High Legends that dragons are not as strong as they really look like. Dragons can be trapped with black mice and other traps, while Root Riders are just unkillable and the #1 troop by far in the game right now. This is why you had 80 to 90% of your defenses being Root Riders, and whenever one of the players who I have built the bases for had multiple dragon attacks on defenses, that always meant it was a good day, because this day they always made a lot of trophies, and I always was happy for that. So Root Riders are just dominating the game, and this is why you had to trap the healers. Healers from the top side with the Root Riders, that was the goal here. But this version of base ended up in the final version, which the players have used until the end of the season, and it was a 1-star machine. Take a look at this. And since I have this base still on my account, I can show it to you a bit better with like zooming in and zooming out and such things. And there were a lot of different versions of this base. But I like this one a lot because we have the fire spitters not in the core anymore. The scatters are quite nice in here, covering a lot of those high HP outside defenses. And the fire spitters are kind of giving a direction for the attacker, because you'd never want to attack in between 2 fire spitters, right? So you want to attack either from the left or from the right. As I said, most people are right-handed, and this is why a lot of people were entering from the bottom right side. No big surprise that most of the traps are located on this side. The other option was from the top left side. With those 2 entries heavily trapped, it's caused a lot of people to fail because they just like to enter on those sides. Another thing which I have seen as well from other builders, which I have just copied, to be honest, is just this outside corner. I think it was General X base, which I have seen this, and it's just a super smart approach to deny the final Barbarian King. Because typically you would just like send the Barbarian King in the corner of the compartment, clear the entire thing, and then just have a great funnel for the Root Riders. But with having this wall here, there's no building to lure the king inside. Having this compartment open means that you cannot wall break over there, so getting the king into this compartment here can be really annoying. On top of that, you have the outside protected with a storage, for example, to make the funnel a bit more annoying to get the king in there, and that was the overall setup. But I know you want to see a replay, and that's what we should take a look at right now. And no big surprise, but this one is a Root Rider attack. This guy is running it with the Royal Champion charge, which in my opinion is right now the by far best strategy in the game, and it won't change after the Electro Boot nerf, because I'm sorry, but that nerf is not going to change much. It's way too small, and let's see what happens in the future. But let's take a look at the attack itself. We have a Super Dragon as a defensive clan castle. The reason for that is that a lot of people, as I said earlier, were attacking from the far right side. With having the clan castle on the back end, this means the troops were splitting a little bit, but the Root Riders were typically going into the core with having a giant arrow to trigger the Invis Tower early. But this means that not always a queen or something else was around to take down the Super Dragon. So the Super Dragon alone was able to provide the defensive power to really mess up the entire attack. So that was something which worked quite a few times. If you're running more like a more consistent and less cheesy way of defending, 2 Ice Golems, 3 Rocket Loons are always a safe choice. For this one, he has created the funnel, taking down the 2 merge defenses, and now going from the top side. But he's not running the giant arrow, and that is something which a lot of people don't do. They're not running the giant arrow for whatever reason. I know, there now might be the reason, it's the equipment are so expensive. Level 1 giant arrow is triggering an Invis Tower the same as a level 5, 18, or whatever. Like a level 100 giant arrow would trigger an Invis Tower as well. It's not about like taking down defenses, it's about triggering the Invis Tower here. That's the key stuff. So, yeah, and that's really giving him problems here. The Black Mines have worked, the healers were gone anyways, but the 2-star, I think he would have appreciated that a lot. But with the Invis Tower not triggered in the core, we see exactly why those type of bases were so successful. People without the Invis triggering mechanics, which means they would have not used the lock launcher, they would have not used the giant arrow, they were struggling a lot, and there was always a free 1-star defense. And now you could say, yep, iTzu, but that's not a good attacker or something. Well, in Legend League, it is all about to defend the average Joe, right? Like, you have to defend the average attacker. And I don't think that there is many players out there, and now I should talk about accounts because some players are playing multiple accounts. I think there's maybe 1,000 accounts out there which are getting played by really solid attackers. Everything below that is most of the time, well, not as consistent in offense. They're doing a lot of mistakes, and even in an easier meta like this, they won't have consistent high 3-star rates. And this is kind of how the reality looks like. And this is why you can still climb a lot of defenses in Legends if you defend exactly those players. Yes, sometimes you have bad luck getting attacked by only top players, but hey, this is why a Legend season is overall 1 month and not only 1 day. So the luck factor is for sure there, but it's not as big as a lot of people are pretending to, trying to make it, because having a successful base is going to defend always great for you. And I was able, and hope I was able to show you that with this experiment. Let me know if I should do that again in the future with maybe a player who has only like a top 100,000 reset or something, and see if it works for such a player as well, playing and boosting them with the defensive base. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I will see you guys back tomorrow with the next video. Until then, see ya, and bye bye.